This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. Welcome into the show. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, a fantastic program. What an awesome matchup we have in Week 11 at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday Night Football between the host Philadelphia Eagles and the visiting Detroit Lions. The Eagles in this game coming back home after being on the road against the Packers on Monday Night Football. So obviously, Philadelphia got back really early on Tuesday morning. They have the rest disadvantage in this game. The plus to that, they are at home. And so Philadelphia, coming off that impressive win against Green Bay, they really have put together an impressive resume this season. 2-point favorites. The over-under is pretty high, so the odds makers expecting this to potentially be a high-scoring game. The over-under is 50 right now. Kickoff is set for 8:20 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, November 16th at the link under the bright lights. A programming reminder, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us. While you're at it, be sure to hit that bell icon, turn on your notifications. Therefore, anytime I push out a video like this, anytime we go live for a live show or a watch party, you will get that push notification. You will be notified. And if you want elite Eagles coverage every single day, you know I got you covered. And we'll be live for an Eagles-Lions watch party. Can't wait to see all of you on Sunday evening. So around this time last year, November of 2024, it really did feel like we were on a collision course between the Eagles and the Lions meeting in the NFC Championship game. Because both of these teams at this juncture of the season were playing great ball. They were both really hot. What happened? Well, the Eagles stayed healthy. Their offense found a groove. Their defense ended up evolving into the top overall unit in the NFL. And the Lions were still winning at a high clip. And on offense, coordinated by Ben Johnson, the play caller, they were humming. But on defense, they had defenders dropping like flies. Now, the Lions still got the number one seed in the NFC. They would have had home field advantage all throughout the playoffs. But after that first round bye, they lost to the hot Washington Commanders at home. And so we didn't get that NFC Championship game that a lot of people thought we were going to get between the two top teams in the NFC for much of last year. Injuries really robbed Detroit. And the year prior, they did make it to the NFC Championship game and had a 17-point advantage against the San Francisco 49ers before they choked that game away in the second half. But this game could be a preview of a high-level future playoff matchup because once again here in 2025, led by Brad Holmes, the Lions general manager, and Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, these are two of the most talented ball clubs in the NFL and two of the deepest teams in the NFL. And right now, they're both sitting pretty in the NFC playoff picture. And this game could go a long way in deciding who potentially gets that number one seed or could shuffle up the NFC playoff standings. Philadelphia in that top spot at 7-2. They have the better conference record than Seattle, who is 7-2. They are 7-1 since their week 1 loss against the Niners. The Lions have been hot. We'll take a look at their schedule coming up. Then 4 through 7, closely contested right now. The Buccaneers at 6-3, leading the NFC South. The Rams are that top wildcard team at 7-2. The Bears, the second wildcard team in a loaded NFC North at 6-3. And then the Green Bay Packers is part of the NFC North as well. That final playoff spot at 5-3-1. They were the 2 seed going into this past week. The Detroit Lions so far, I was wondering how they were going to fare this year because they lost Ben Johnson, the most pursued offensive coordinator in recent memory. He's now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. And they lost their defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn, who became the head coach of the Jets. And in week 1, they lost pretty badly to Green Bay. They weren't good on offense. They weren't good on defense. Then they went on a tear. Beat the Bears in week 2, 52-21. They got that anger out. Beat the Ravens when Baltimore was still pretty healthy, 38-30 in primetime on the road. Demolished the Browns 34-10 in week 4. Beat the Bengals 37-24. They lost to the Chiefs after winning 4 straight, but the Chiefs were in a must-win spot there. They come off of that Chiefs loss. They beat the Buccaneers 24-9. They lose to the Vikings 2 weeks ago, surprisingly, at home, but it's a divisional game, 27-24. And then they dominated the Commanders last week. Obviously, the Commanders are old and brittle, 44-22. But that offense was clicking, and Dan Campbell was the play caller. He took over play calling duties. You look at how the Lions stack up this season, they are a superb team. And they are graded and ranked very highly on the offensive side of the pill and the defensive side of the rock. Number 2 in points per game at 31.4. Number 6 in yards per game at 372.4. 4th in yards per play, 6.1. 21st on third downs at 37.5%. But they are number 4 in red zone touchdown rate at 68.4%. On defense, 13th in points per game at 22.2. That'll play, though, when you're dropping 31-plus points per game. Plus, they play a fast style that doesn't always help out the defense in a complementary way. Detroit, 7th in yards per game given up, under 300. 7th in yards per play at 5. 7th on third downs. Interestingly enough, though, teams do have success in the red zone against this Lions defense, scoring touchdowns at a 66.6% rate. When I scout the Detroit Lions, this is a pretty big change, and it was a bold move by Dan Campbell, who is very bold and aggressive. He took over play calling duties against Washington, and what did the Lions do? They scored 40-plus points. Now, that Commanders defense is old, they're banged up, and the Commanders just demoted their defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn will now call their defensive plays. But Dan Campbell did some creative things that I really liked from a schematic and play design standpoint. And it was a collaborative approach, but he was on the headset calling plays. Jared Goff, once again, putting together a really good year. He throws one of the prettiest balls in football. Amon-Ra St. Brown from that wide receiver spot, an absolute stud, a top 5 wide receiver in the game, and he could play inside, outside. The Lions 1-2 punch at running back with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, flash and pound, is elite. And this Lions team, like the Eagles, they've built their team in the trenches. Along the offensive line, led by Penei Sewell. On the defensive line, led by Aiden Hutchinson. And that really is the backbone of their team because under Dan Campbell, they want to play a bruising downhill style. On the injury report for the Lions, Marcus Davenport, he was activated off of IR. He started practicing this week, but dealing with the pec injury, which landed him on IR, not expected to play in this game. More so in December. DJ Reed, same can be said for him. Not going to play in this game most likely, coming off a hamstring injury. Aiden Hutchinson did not practice on Wednesday. Kirby Joseph dealing with the knee, an excellent corner there. Terrion Arnold dealing with a concussion. Thankfully, the Eagles got Quinyon Mitchell in that draft. Penei Sewell, Brock Wright getting veteran rest days. Penei Sewell, I think Lane Johnson's going to be watching him because he was named an All-Pro last year ahead of Lane, and you can certainly make the argument that Lane Johnson was a lot better than Sewell. Speaking of Lane Johnson, in that game on Monday night against Green Bay, he suffered that left ankle injury when he got rolled up on as the safety came from that backside on a Saquon Barkley run. He was out for a long time. He was never ruled out. And then when the Eagles were trying to clinch the game late, Lane hobbled onto the field and he gave it a go. He is one of the biggest MVPs on this Eagles offense. And this has been the case since he was drafted out of Oklahoma by Chip Kelly, all the way back in 2013. In his career, since joining the Eagles, when he is on the field, the Eagles are 105, 55, and 1. A lot of winning. When Lane Johnson does not start, the Eagles are 15 and 23 without him. Him going up against the likes of an Aiden Hutchinson would obviously be a marquee matchup in this football game if Lane Train can play. So who you got in this game? Type DET for Detroit, PHI for Philadelphia. Get those predictions in, and I'll give you my score prediction coming up here in just a little bit. Now, coming up next, just around the corner, I'm going to give you my keys to the game, my top matchups to watch, what the Eagles must do to beat Detroit. Let's get to our sponsor. Today's Philadelphia Eagles Now is sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook. You know this show as the Chase and Chip Show. I grew up in Chester County, producer Chip in Bucks County, so we are lifelong Philadelphia fans. And I used to host our 76ers channel, but because Eagles Now has grown into an empire, Chip now hosts our 76ers channel. And DraftKings sponsors our Sixers show, so go over there and subscribe to that channel. But DraftKings is also sponsoring today's show, but you will see that the code that you need to use is Sixers Chat, and you can hear from Chip right now.
All your favorite NBA players are back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is the place to bet on NBA stars this season. New customers Bet just $5 and get 3 months of NBA League Pass, plus score $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SixersChat. That's code SixersChat. Bet $5 and get 3 months of League Pass, plus get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. NBA League Pass auto renews until canceled. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
Thank you, Chip, for that. And we'll take a look at Chip's picks, plus 410 on this parlay. Eagles money line against the Lions. Devontae Smith, 60-plus receiving yards. He's emerged this year as the Eagles' number one wideout. Saquon Barkley, anytime touchdown score. Odds and lines subject to change. Bet $5, get 3 months of League Pass. Use that code SixersChat. All right, let's move forward here with our Eagles-Lions preview. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. This is Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Senior. Thanks for hanging out here with me. I cannot wait for this game on Sunday Night Football between the Eagles and the Lions. This Eagles schedule here in 2025, it's a very difficult one. The plus side is we get to see a lot of the top teams across the league, and the Lions are that. Here are my keys to the game, matchups to watch, what Philadelphia must do in order to win this game, and I will give you my prediction as well. And let's begin here by setting the foundation for what we're getting into here, a sneak peek into what you can expect from this Lions ball club, which is one of the top teams in the National Football League on both sides of the football. Number 2 in points per game on offense, 6th in yards per game, 4th in yards per play, 21st on third downs. They make up for that by not moving the chains, by being very efficient inside the red zone. Number 4 there with a 68.4 red zone touchdown scoring percentage, meaning when they get inside the 20, they're scoring touchdowns 68% of the time. On defense, led by Aiden Hutchinson, one of the top pass rushers in football, 13th in points per game. But keep in mind that this Lions offense generates explosive plays, and sometimes they play at a fast pace that is very frenetic. And so that doesn't always do a lot of favors for the defense. And so they could be susceptible to giving up a decent amount of points. So 13th in points per game at 22.2 isn't great as far as the league ranking, but when you're dropping 31.4 per ball game, that is a 9-point difference right there. They are 7th in yards per game, 7th in yards per play, 7th on third downs, but 25th in the red zone. And that could be a key area in this game because the Eagles all year have had the number 1 most efficient red zone touchdown scoring offense in the NFL at 80.9%. That has been a big plus to what has otherwise been a very maddening and frustrating offensive season for Philadelphia, that when they get inside the 20, nearly 81% of the time, those drives are leading to 7 points on the board. Now, Philadelphia is 12th in points per game at 24.2 on offense, but 23rd in yards per game at 303.2. 20th in yards per play at 5.3. They have struggled on third downs, 34.8% there. The defense is really rising up in some of these categories, and it's led by their pass rush being a lot more dynamic the last couple of weeks. 10th in points per game, 18th in yards per game, 13th in yards per play, 26th on third downs. They need to get better there, and that improved pass rush should help a little bit on obvious passing downs. But when the opposing offense gets inside the red area, Eagles do a good job of bending but not breaking and forcing field goals. 48.1% red zone touchdown rate. That is number 4 in the NFL. As far as my keys to the game and the top matchups to watch, I can't wait to see Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the top wide receivers in football, go up against Quinyon Mitchell and Coop. Once again, Amon-Ra is having a fantastic year. 82 targets, 64 catches, 693 yards, and 8 touchdowns going into Week 11 here. And why I mentioned him going up against Q and Coop, the Lions use him all around the field, just like Ben Johnson did in years prior. He is lined up in the slot 213 times. So you'll see him go up against DeJean there. He's lined up out wide for 278 snaps. Wouldn't surprise me if the Lions use him out wide on the Adoree Jackson side quite often. And then they'll do some trickery with Amon-Ra from time to time. He's been in the backfield for 9 snaps. But that's what makes him a dynamic player and a mismatch nightmare, because the Lions will put him anywhere on the field to try to exploit the defense and take advantage of his vast skill set. Key to the game number 2. Will this Philadelphia Eagles pass rush eat against Jared Goff? Obviously, the Eagles have gone up against mobile quarterbacks this year. They've gone up against pocket quarterbacks this year. Jared Goff is immobile. He cannot move around. He will not hurt you with his legs, at least very rarely. If he does, it's because everybody else drops back in coverage and there's plenty of real estate in front of him. He is very slow-footed. He is a traditional drop-back pocket quarterback. And so if this Eagles pass rush can bring it, which they've done in the last 2 games, I really like the Eagles' chances of winning. Historically as well, Jared Goff splits playing inside compared to outside are a lot different. He struggled in the outdoors, especially in cold weather. He's a California guy. This year, though, to his credit, his stats are actually pretty even in a dome compared to outside. But as the weather starts to get a little bit colder, we'll see if that changes at all. It's not expected to be crazy cold on Sunday night, moderate temperatures for a mid-November game. But going back to this Eagles pass rush, against Jordan Love, they pressured him on 17 of his 42 dropbacks. That was the second highest pressure rate that Love has experienced this year. And when he was pressured, he went 3 of 12 for 21 yards and 3 sacks. And that Eagles pass rush was led by their newest acquisition, Jalen Phillips. He had 6.5 sacks in 8 games under Vic Fangio back in 2023. And I thought that the scheme familiarity was going to be huge for the Eagles making this move, in the sense that he was a plug-and-play starter right from the jump and played a ton of snaps in his first game because he didn't have to get caught up with the scheme. He already knows it. And he said one of the more exciting things about coming to Philadelphia is teaming back up with Vic Fangio, and he was one of the only players with that soft Miami team that liked that hard coaching from Fangio. And in that game against Green Bay, he took over. He dominated. 8 pressures, 7 hurries, 2 quarterback hits, a 19.4% pressure rate. He had 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. Reed Blankenship kind of gets credit for that, but Jalen Phillips blew up the play and helped to dislodge the ball, and he did lead the charge on that play of stuffing Josh Jacobs on that 4th and 1. Shout out to Moro Ojomo too, right? Inside zone this way, inside zone this way. So that's what that pass rush did against Green Bay. The game before that, before the bye week, this Eagles pass rush also came alive against Jackson Dart. 18 pressures on 24 Dart throws. They sacked Dart 5 times. That Giants offensive line had been playing well, and they registered 12 quarterback hits. You had Phillips balling out against Green Bay. Jalen Hunt played well against the Packers. Against the Giants, Jalen Hunt had one of the better games of his career. This is a significant development because he's really started to turn it on after a slow start to the year. Nolan Smith had a sack of Jordan Love coming off of IR against the Packers. And now you add Jalen Phillips to the mix with Moro Ojomo, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis along the interior. The point that I'm making here is this Eagles defensive front and this Eagles pass rush is looking scary good, and that is something that can lift you to a Super Bowl, and that is something that wins in the postseason and against elite teams like Detroit. Now for Hunt, finally recorded his first sack against the Giants. He had 28 pressures on the season up until that point. He had 16 in those 3 games going into the bye week. And against the Giants, he had 9 pressures and 1 sack. And so you combine what he did against Green Bay, these numbers are even better for Jalen Hunt. And so important to emphasize that if the Eagles can get pressure on Jared Goff, he's not mobile. He's not going to be able to break contain. You don't have to really worry about that with the disciplined pass rush lanes. And if you do pressure him, he is prone to turning the football over. It's not going to be easy because of the scheme, the play calling, the weapons that the Lions have, and their offensive line, pretty damn good. You have Taylor Decker at left tackle, Coyote Awasika at left guard, Graham Glasgow takes over at center, Tate Ratledge, a player who I really liked in the pre-draft for Philadelphia because of that Georgia connection and that beautiful mullet, is at right guard, and then Penei Sewell at right tackle. Key to the game number 3, matchup number 3. This Eagles run defense will be tested. And I think so far this year, they've been pretty good, but they haven't been great. And this Lions backfield has an interesting dynamic to it. Jahmyr Gibbs is the flash. His pull-away speed, some of the most electric pull-away speed that you will see at the position in the NFL. But he gives you physicality too and a pass-catching threat. This year, he's been a top 3 back in football, right up there with Jonathan Taylor, who's in the MVP conversation. 128 carries for Gibbs, 693 yards, 8 touchdowns, a long of 78, which came on that primetime game against the Buccaneers. When you watch him, you say, wow, because he can be gone in a blink. So he's a difficult cover. And going into the draft a couple of years ago, I had said, I don't really see that much of a difference between him and Bijan Robinson to start their careers. They've both been exceptional. David Montgomery, he is the physical bell cow, downhill, run you over type of back who is a different change of pace from Jahmyr Gibbs. And the Lions will interchange their backs all throughout the game, depending on down and distance, obviously workload, but the flow of the game and the complexion of the game. 104 carries this year for Montgomery, 466 yards, and he has 5 touchdowns. So that's 13 rushing touchdowns between the two backs this year. Key to the game number 4. This is a really big talking point for me. The Eagles scored 10 points to beat the Green Bay Packers, a team that, of course, the Lions are very familiar with. With how elite and high scoring, the high octane offense that Detroit has, 10 points isn't going to win this game. And if the Eagles can only muster 10 points in this ball game, they will get blown out. And so the offense has to improve upon what they did against Green Bay. It's important to remember that against the Packers, the real field temperature was like 17 degrees, and there were howling winds that will impact offensive football. But this isn't going to play against Detroit. Thankfully, as of right now, the weather is going to be a little bit better in South Philly on Sunday night. A little bit chilly, not too chilly though, and oftentimes it's not too windy at the link. But 294 yards of total offense, 4.9 yards per play, 183 passing yards, 111 on the ground, 3.3 yards per tote. Losing the turnover battle would be big in this game. Eagles fumbled it away against Green Bay on the opening drive. Otherwise, maybe the game is a little bit different. Micah Parsons also tripped Saquon Barkley late. That could have been a house call. Time of possession, pretty even between Philadelphia and Green Bay. And time of possession is also something important here. If you can keep that Lions offense on the sideline, you got to like your chances of winning as well. And as part of that 4th talking point here, Kevin Patullo, Eagles offensive coordinator against the Packers at times this year. Wasn't the case against Minnesota. Wasn't the case against New York. But sometimes he coordinates scared. He calls plays scared and in a very conservative way. You know that Dan Campbell is going to be aggressive. They're going to go for it on 4th down often. They're going to try to slit your throat in a football sense, right? And so you have to match that aggressiveness, and you can't play or call games scared. Detroit also, as part of that, really does a good job of seizing momentum and taking advantage of momentum changes. And, my gosh, can we get A.J. Brown more than 3 targets? If there is a weakness on this Lions team, it is their secondary, especially at the cornerback spot, and they're dealing with some injuries there. This is a game, after A.J. Brown made some more noise, where the passing game should be able to click. Predict the score. Lions-Eagles, Sunday Night Football. It's going to be an epic one. And here's my prediction. I know the Eagles have the rest disadvantage playing Monday night on the road against Green Bay. The Lions had a head start as far as game planning goes. But the Eagles have really risen up in these big spots all year, and they get up for these types of games. They know the importance that this game can play by season's end as far as the seeding goes. They're at home. They're fired up. They dealt with some noise this week. I think they're going to be motivated. And I think Philadelphia wants to show everybody that when we play our best football, we are the best team in the NFC. And they want home field advantage this year to go through the link. Give me the Birds 29-26 and a thriller at the link.